Okay, welcome everybody to this first meeting of the Highways and Transport Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which is taking place in Sparkenhoe Committee Room at County Hall due to the regulations which are in place at the moment. Though some officers are joining us online as well via the Microsoft Teams, and they're up on the screen here in the room. Okay, so as this is the first meeting of the committee, and we've also got a lot of new councillors here, I thought we should start with some introductions. So should we start on my left, Mr. Barclay?
Good afternoon, my name is Tom Barclay. I'm the County Councillor for Syston Ridgeway.
Good afternoon, my name is Craig Smith. I'm the County Councillor for Colville North.
Good afternoon, my name's Keith Murray. I'm the County Councillor for Colville South.
Good afternoon, I'm Richard Allen. I'm the County Councillor for Earl Shilton Division.
Good afternoon, I'm David Bill. I'm the County Councillor for Hinckley Hollycroft.
Good afternoon, I'm Max Hunt from Loughborough Northwest.
And do you want to introduce yourself?
Anne Crothers, Director of Environment and Transport.
Ozzy O'Shea, I'm the County Councillor for Groovy, Ratbeard and Fieldhead and the Cabinet Member for Highways.
Good afternoon, I'm Maggie Wright. I represent the Crofton Stoney Stanton Division and I'm also Cabinet Support with Ozzy. Thank you.
And last but not least, Tony Gillard, Member for Whittick, Thrinkson and Charlie.
Thank you, everyone. So we'll get on with the agenda, and the first agenda item is appointment of chairman, as this is a new committee. And Mr. Tony Gillard was nominated as chairman-elect at the council meeting on the 7th of July. Can I have a proposer and seconder, please, that Mr. Gillard be appointed as chair?
I propose Mr. Gillard.
Thank you, Mr. Barclay. Do we have a seconder?
Yeah, I second Mr. Gillard.
Thank you. Everybody happy with that? Thank you very much. Okay, so Mr. Gillard, you are appointed as chair of the Highways and Transport Overview and Scrutiny Committee for the 2021-22 year, and I'll hand over to you for the rest of the meeting.
Thank you, Ewan. Thank you, colleagues. I think that's the second time I've been elected chairman in the last 3 months. So must be doing something right, but thank you very much. Item 2 on the agenda is election of deputy chairman. Likewise, Mr. Murray was nominated as deputy chairman-elect at the council meeting on the 7th of July. I will like to move Mr. Murray be appointed. And do I have a seconder?
I'll second Mr. Murray.
Thank you, Craig. Agreed? Thank you very much. Item 3, question time. I've received no questions from the public. So I'll move on to item 4. Questions asked by members under Standing Order 7. Mr. Hunt has submitted 8 questions relating to highways and transport matters. Answers to all questions have been provided, circulated to all members and published on the website. Mr. Hunt, you are allowed 1 supplementary per question. Do you wish to ask a supplementary?
Yes, Chair, I've got 2 supplementary questions for clarification. The first one, Chair, is on question 4. And for the new members, all these questions refer to the passenger transport strategy and the implementation of bus shelters and other facilities for bus users. The strategy states very clearly, if I can find it, there's quite a lot here, that the selection of locations for any new bus stops and shelters will follow good practice and will particularly consider accessibility for people with impaired mobility. And that's what I read and the Cabinet agreed a couple of years ago. But the answer I'm getting below is that it only covers physical impaired mobility. And I don't know what the difference between physical impaired mobility and impaired mobility is. Mobility is mobility. And then it goes on to say, this is the answer, Chair. In fact, it's your answer, Chair. that access to public transport is available on a universal basis to everyone in Leicestershire, regardless of disability or learning difficulties. So there's a contradiction there. On the one hand, it's saying we will pay particular attention when citing bus stops and bus shelters to those with mobility difficulties. And then we say that we do everything on a universal basis to everybody in Leicestershire, regardless of disability, and they're completely contradictory. And just to give you the background to this, I've got a sheltered housing which has just opened for young people with learning disabilities who are transitioning into the community, and they're there to learn how to and become more familiar with being independent, including using public transport. So it's a particular interest for me for that reason, and it's a county council facility. So my question is, what exactly is the policy towards people with impaired mobility and in the citing of bus stops and bus shelters?
Thank you, Max. That's your supplementary question then, so it's clarification basically.
On number 4, I'm sorry if it was a bit longer than you.
No, it's okay, it's okay. And if you're able to answer, then fine. Or Max, would you accept a written response?
I'll accept a written response, but
thank you, Max.
I'm getting pretty cheesed off.
Okay, thank you, Max. Can we provide a written response?
I certainly can, Chair.
Thank you. Max, you have another supplementary?
The last one is a very simple one, and it's number 6. And it says very clearly, the district council previously supplied bus shelters under a local agency agreement with the county council. That's to say in non-parished areas like Loughborough, Colville, Market Harbour and so on. And it says with the council, however, they no longer provide these. And this can have confirmation that the districts will no longer provide bus shelters as it states, which I believe to be the case, whereas parishes will still provide them. It would be really useful to have that clarification, Chair.
Again, Max, if we can't answer that now, Anne, and I'm relying on Anne for the answer, would you accept a written response? Thank you, Max. So those are your 2 supplementaries. Anne, are we okay to do a written response?
Yes, we are, Chair. We can do that, certainly.
Thank you. Thank you, Max. No more supplementaries then, Max, on that one? No, thank you. Move on to item 5 then, to advise of any other items which the chairman has decided to take as urgent elsewhere on the agenda. There are no urgent items. Declarations of interest in respect of items on the agenda. Do any members have any interest to declare? None? Thank you. Item 7, declaration of party whip in accordance with overview and scrutiny procedure rules. Are there any declarations of the party whip? I'm not aware of any. No. Move on to item 8, presentation of petitions under Standing Order 35. I've not received any petitions. Item 9, it's the main agenda item for today, is the Highways and Transport Performance Report to June 2021. I'll hand over to Anne Carruthers, Director of Environment and Transport, to introduce this report, and no doubt we'll take any questions after Anne's presentation. Anne, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Normally, previous Highways, Transport and Environment committees, we would have done this report by exception, but because this is the new committee dealing with just the Highways and Transport element of our work, if it's all right with you, Chair, I propose to go through each of the performance indicators individually, relatively briefly, however, just to give the committee a view of exactly what's behind it and an understanding of where we are in terms of performance. I'm aware a number of members will not be familiar with this dashboard. So if that's all right with you and having your indulgence to do that, I would direct members to the second appendix and the dashboard there. And if we just briefly go through each of those to give you a flavour, I will maybe do 2 or 3 indicators and then stop for questions if that's all right, rather than go through the whole thing and expect you to, remember your earlier questions. But please, if there's anything urgent, I'm happy to take questions through. you. So if we look at the first indicator, percentage of principal, that's A-class road network where structural maintenance should be considered. We get this information from surveying the condition of the highway network, and it is compared against comparator authorities, and as you'll see there, the RAG rating on it is green. If I just take you to the column on the right-hand side, quartiles, that is against our comparator authorities, and first quartile means we're in the top quarter of performance. Obviously, if we're in the fourth quartile, we're not doing very well against our comparator authorities. The data that you'll see there, what that actually means is for the current year, the latest data we have, the percentage of our A-class network that is estimated in need of maintenance, therefore we should be considering for maintenance, is 2%. And we are doing better than our target of 4%. Now, obviously, we want to keep it under 4%. The lower the percentage in this one, the better for us. And as you can see there, we're doing well against comparator authorities because we are in the top quartile. Second one, similar theme, but for our B-class and C-class road network. And there you can see we've 4% is in need of consideration for structural maintenance. And our target is to be below 6%. So again, we're green on that one. But the thing I will draw your attention to is there is a column that says previous data, and that was 3%. So we're actually moving up. More of our network is now in need of maintenance across that B and C class classification. And the next one, and then I will stop in case there's any questions, is the same indicator, but for our unclassified road network. Now, we've got round about just under 2,600 miles of road within the county. 54% of that comes into our unclassified network. So that's our small country roads, your estate roads, etc. So they are the ones that a lot of people will use, however, because it does take you home, takes you to the local shops, etc. So it is a big chunk of our network and it is well used. Our target for that is 13% or less. We are not meeting that target. The latest data shows that 16% of our unclassified network needs to be considered for maintenance. It's getting to the state of repair where we should be taking some action and maintaining that. And again, that's going in the wrong direction. It's moved from 15 to 16, and we're in the second quartile for that. It does, and I can envisage there may be questions around it. It does reflect the fact that, you know, we are doing the best we can with the allocations we have from government to maintain our network. We're no different from the majority of highway authorities up and down the country in terms of we have the evidence to show we don't have enough money to deal with the issues on our network to adequately maintain it. We do follow the risk-based approach, whereby we will seek to elongate the life of the asset, life of the road, by putting in the right treatment at the right time. So that's why, hence, over the summer, you'll have seen a lot of things like surface dressing going on, because that actually, if we can get a road before it deteriorates too far, put surface dressing on it, we'll get round about another 7 years of life out of that road before we need to do some serious maintenance work to it. So, but however, as you'll see the way that data is going, it is a very serious ongoing challenge for us. I'll stop there for questions, Chair.
Thank you, Anne. Do we have any questions, Ron? I'll take David first and you, Keith.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Anne. I've got a number of questions on this report, but they all relate really to the degree to which we are facing substantial warehousing, an increase in warehousing of one sort or another, and the impact this is having on the roads. So in this particular case, although HGVs are not meant to travel on unclassified roads, they obviously do travel that way, and of course there's occasion where they have to go on unclassified roads because of the need for access to which they are entitled to, and they're entitled to use the roads. Should we be considering measures to protect the network? If we, as the indications are that we're going in the wrong direction with this, that we're not getting the resources to maintain the network as we would like, and we're moving in the wrong direction, should we be considering protecting the minor roads to limit the amount of damage, so that those people who have to use minor roads, such as walkers and cyclists and ordinary car users, have a degree of protection? Thank you, Chairman.
Anne, would you like to answer?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, a couple of points in reference and an interesting thought. I mean, firstly, I'll just remind you of our statutory duty as a highway authority. That's to provide the road network to ensure passage and repassage of vehicles. So we are there to, facilitate movement, etc. Within that, quite rightly, as you say, often we try to manage that to, for safety reasons, etc. By things like weight limits. Now, with regard to that, I think Leicestershire is in a relatively good position. There was some work done, I believe it was in the 1990s, to put in environmental weight limits, whereby we have looked at the road network and we've looked at the routes that are most suitable for the likes of HGV traffic and where we can feasibly restrict and prohibit HGVs from going into. So we have large areas of the county that have environmental weight limits on them, whereby for through traffic, HGVs are not allowed. Now, the exception, as you quite rightly said, Mr. Bill, is HGVs are still allowed to enter such an area that is restricted where they are going into access, be it a business, a delivery, etc., etc. But, in terms of overall, we're in a lot better places than other counties. In fact, other counties have approached us to ask us how we did that work, because they too, are seeing the disbenefits of HGVs, on their much smaller road network and in their small communities. So just a couple of thoughts in response to that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and I think we also have speed limits in place, don't we, for vehicles to adhere to. David, anything else? Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Keith?
Thank you, Chair. The first of the three KPIs, for my benefit, just tell us that the Highways Department are doing a lot of inspections on a lot of roads and telling us that maintenance needs to be done on them roads. Should we not have a KPI which tells us how much of that maintenance we're actually completing or putting in place? Or even if we've got it linked to a lack of funds, if the government aren't providing the funds, I think that's what should be addressed. I'm just a bit confused that we've got 2 greens and a red, and 2 are green because we're doing lots of inspections, and 1's red because we're doing more inspections. I'm just a bit confused, Chair.
Hopefully I can help on that one. I guess these performance indicators are the outcome of the work that we do. So, you're saying, should there be a KPI in terms of what it is we're doing? We have a programme every year of our maintenance work, our planned maintenance work, and that does go on, on the website as well. So it is viewed, so we can see what areas of the county there's specific works going on. We also always have every year in, year out, unfortunately, lots of reactive work. That's least effective use of your money, but you have to go and deal with something because the state it's got into. So we have an element of that. So is the outcome of that work that you're seeing is happening here? The 2 reds are the 2 greens are because we're in the top quartile and we're meeting our target in terms of the required maintenance for those road categories are below the target we've got. The red is because we've exceeded that target, so we've got a higher percentage of the road network needing classification. So what I would say is actually the information about what we're doing and how much maintenance we do is in our programmes that are on the internet. This is the outcome of that in terms of the impact on the road network. We're doing that work, but as we're seeing in some areas, it's still not sufficient. We've still got issues with, if we were in an ideal world and we had no limit on funding, we would certainly be addressing.
Of course, Keith.
Thank you. And I won't ask a supplement now. I'll send you an email because I do think maybe it's me, but I work with KPIs all the time in my business, and maybe it's the wording on the left-hand side where structural maintenance should be considered. So that tells me it should be considered, but have you done it or not? That's not what's shown there. It may be on a program which you can point me in the direction of, and some further background information, etc., etc. Thank you.
Well, I'll just come back on that. I guess they should be considered, as I say, is the outcome where we are at the current time in terms of percentage of network that needs to be maintained. What we do in response to that every year is put a maintenance programme together. However, what it's showing is even after doing last year's maintenance programme, we've still got this deficit. So this is the differential.
Anything else, colleagues? No. Anne, would you like to continue?
Certainly, thank you. Next one, total vehicle kilometres and county roads, and this is in million vehicle kilometres. Now, this one only gets updated once a year annually. However, we have just had the latest update. This is information that is collated and goes nationally into DFT, Department for Transport, and there's something like 400 count sites around the county where we've counted, vehicle volumes, etc. And as I say, that we have to submit that to Department for Transport. They look at it, they validate it for across the country, and then they disseminate it. And we've had the latest information for Leicestershire, and that is for 2020. So as you can see, it's for that calendar year, and it does take a bit of time to get to us because we've only just got it, I think, in the last month or so. And what you'll see there is, if you look at the previous data, just under 5 million vehicle kilometres, it's gone down to 3.6 million vehicle kilometres. However, hasn't gone by anybody here. We did have a pandemic last year and multiple lockdowns, which did impact on traffic levels. So, what I would caveat was, I don't think we can take this as the start of a definite trend downward in terms of the amount of vehicle kilometres across the county. We need to be reminded of, the pandemic, and traffic levels were certainly not normal last year. And we will need to look at the ongoing trend over the coming years to see if that was just a blip. The next one, overall satisfaction with the condition of highways. This comes out of, and a number of indicators come out of a National Highways and Transport survey. We take part in that, and it is a really good source of data. Because it gives us comparators against other highway authorities, so we can really begin to understand, are we doing things well or not. It happens every year, and there's surveys that go to the public, to parish councils, and to members. So I'm sure members around the table will recall seeing a request at some point for you to fill that in. So when it comes to you next time, please, I encourage you to do that, because it goes into this data. So what you'll see on that one in terms of satisfaction, the condition of our highways, we have seen a slight improvement from 36.6% being satisfied to just over 37% being satisfied. And in terms of, while that doesn't seem like a high percentage, when you're looking across our comparators, we're coming out in the top quartile. So again, fairly good performance there. The next one down, private and government funding secured to deliver infrastructure through Section 106. This data is 2019-20, and the actual figures there is in millions of pounds, and it's showing that, during that year, we secured 9.1 million through Section 106 agreements, specifically for infrastructure improvements. You will note, however, that's gone down from the previous year. And again, I think we need to speculate, it is tied to, the development industry and how buoyant that is and what's happening at that time. So, again, it'll be interesting to see how that goes over time, and as we get more data year on year. I think I'll pause there if that's all right, because the next few are about public transport and buses, and I'll take those together, Chair.
Thank you, Anne. Is there any comments, questions before I move on? Happy to move on, Anne.
Yep, certainly, thank you. The next one, overall satisfaction with local bus services. Again, that National Highways and Transport Survey is where this data comes from. And as you'll see, we've seen a very slight decline from 58 to 56.7% satisfaction there. Meets the target, however, so it's showing green, but we are in the second quartile compared to other authorities. So, you know, in the better half, the top half, but still second quartile. Local bus passenger journeys originating in the local authority area. So that's as long as the journey starts in Leicestershire, it's counted here. We've got 3.8 million there, it shows, of passenger journeys, and the target of 4. So it's just slightly below the target. And we're showing third quartile. However, what I would say is the data is 2021. So again, pandemic time. And I'm sure it will escape nobody that, you know, bus patronage was massively affected by the pandemic. I mean, just as a kind of comparator for you, pre-pandemic times, the levels we're reporting here are usually between 12 and 13 million. So significantly down because of the pandemic. Next one there, number of park and ride journeys. This one's a similar story. I know that data there is just a snapshot in time at 18,000, just over 18,000 for that quarter 4 of last financial year. However, our normal figures are something like 250,000. So again, substantially down, again, impacted by the pandemic. So we'll just need to see how those figures build again as we, you know, as time goes on. I think if it just do the next one, the overall satisfaction with cycle routes and facilities, you'll see the latest data is 33.6% satisfaction, which is down from 37%. Below the target again of 47%, so that's showing red because it's not met its target. However, when we look at comparator authorities and that National Highways and Transport survey, we are still in the top quartile, so we're performing well against other authorities. I'll take one more and then stop. Overall satisfaction with rights of way, we've seen an improvement there up to 53.6% and just over the target, and again top quartile performance there. I'll pause, Chair.
Thank you, Anne. Any questions? Max, Keith? Yeah, I'll take Max first, Keith and Craig.
Thanks, Anne. The satisfaction with local bus services is way above the satisfaction with the highways. Makes me wonder what's wrong with people, because our highways are very good and the buses are not so good, in my view. But I'm not a regular in fact, I hardly ever use buses, and I'm probably thinking that goes for most of us in the room. I do cycle, and I'm probably in a minority on that as well. So I think we have to rely very much on what officers tell us. The bus, what I was interested in around these questions is where we're going with bus services in the county, because we've been through a period under COVID where basically we were paying for the buses to run, or the public funds were paying for the buses to run. Is that funding going to be removed from the bus services at certain points, and is it tapered? And what discussions are we having with the local services about that? How do you see the future? And can we have some bus shelters?
I certainly can, but I don't know about in the last point. In terms of the situation with the bus operation, the bus market in the county at the moment. We do work closely with the bus operators, and we're there at the moment in terms of the service provision. So the services they're running is between 90 and 100%, depending on which operator. Okay, so they're nearly back to the way they were before across the county. The patronage, however, varies between 60 and 80%. So it's certainly climbed a lot, but it's there's still a deficit there. And when you think about what the impact of that is, and as you're quite rightly saying, Max, in terms of the funding support that the bus operators have had, that's still quite worrying. Just within that patronage, I think this is anecdotal now, but from the bus operators again, they are saying they feel the concessionary pass holder usage is more cautious, and that's more about between 40 and 60%. So people are being less cautious about getting back to using buses if they're concessionary pass holder. In terms of where operators are hoping to get to is round about 90% patronage during next year, 2022. So that's what they are, I think, working their financial models and their business operating models to, getting to 90% patronage next year. You're quite right, absolutely. The government has put in a lot of funding over the pandemic, both through ourselves as local authorities, but also directly to the operators during the pandemic. The COVID Bus Services Support Grant, with the snappy acronym of CBSSG, has been running during that time. It, however, stopped at the end of August, 31st of August, so 2 days ago. What government have put in place, however, because they recognise, that the market's not up and running, is they have put out 226 million as a bus recovery grant, which now runs from the beginning of September to the end of this financial year, the end of March. And that will be allocated on a formula basis. We haven't yet been told how much that will be in that formula, but there will be money coming into Leicestershire in recognition that the bus industry is still very much in a transition and not back to full strength. I guess the crunch will come if we get to next March and patronage still is not up at the 90 to 100% level, because the real risk for us as a local authority is more commercial services are withdrawn as they no longer get any support from government, and we as a local authority are asked to pick up those services, given the strain on our budgets. I hope that's been useful.
Thank you. Keith?
Thank you, Chair. First question is on the satisfaction with cycle routes and facilities. Obviously, it's dropped and it's rated red on the system. So if someone in the department could send me some information. So I couldn't find that survey anywhere. I tried to find out where you've got that information from to make it go red, and I couldn't find the survey. But I would be interested to find out what people's feedback in the survey is, why they're not satisfied. I don't need that answer today. If somebody can send me an email and a link. And the second point for me, it's not a question, it's a point. I think the satisfaction with the rights of way network has increased because a lot more people have been walking during the COVID year. Yeah. That's my opinion, and I certainly went for a lot more walks and became very grateful to the rights of way markers and the footpaths and all the rest of it. So that's probably why the feedback's gone up. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Happy to supply a response for Keith at a later date.
Very happy, Chair. That's no problem. We'll certainly provide a link to that. And just one, I would more than echo, your second point about the rights of way network, because it was certainly shown through the number of inquiries we had into our rights of way section during the last year or so. They were substantially increased, which just reflected the increased usage of the network. So yeah.
Thank you, Chair. So thanks, Anne, for the explanation on the dashboard as well. As a new member, it's really quite interesting how it all works and everything like that. With regard to the cycleways, obviously we're in this red zone here. Is that indicative of the drop in funding, or does it take into account the variance in funding that you get from government?
I think we have to bid for funding in terms of cycling, so we don't get any actual, standard formula allocation for that. I mean, the red entirely reflects the fact that we're not meeting the target. We've set a target of 47% satisfaction, and we're not meeting that. We are still in the green in terms of we're in the first quartile, so in terms of comparator authorities. I mean, I think it is an interesting one. You could say more people were probably cycling over the last year because, again, government were very hot on trying to lock in the benefits of that and retain the benefits of that by putting out some bidding opportunities for cycling and walking facilities. Or it may also be a reflection in the fact that more people were cycling and walking and found the facilities weren't, what they anticipated or expected or would want to see, people that maybe hadn't cycled before. So I think there's a whole host of factors that could come into the fact that, that level of satisfaction has gone down. But as I say, we're still in the first quartile when we compare to, comparator authorities. But a lot of work to do. I absolutely agree.
Thank you, Anne. Richard.
Thank you very much, Chair. So it kind of ties in with both Keith's and Craig's points. So just general observation, it might be useful where we're quoting a percentage if there's actually the sample size there, so we can see if we're, how it's comparing, and are we comparing, sort of like for like, and give us an idea of which way the trends are going. So if that could be kind of incorporated, that might be quite useful for anyone looking at the reports in the future. Thank you.
Just a quick one, and apologies, it was my omission. Just that line you see at the kind of right hand side of your sheet just before the quartiles column, that shows the trend over the last few periods. So if it's fairly straight or if it's going up or going down, just to try and give a bit of an indication. I appreciate it's difficult at this scale but it just gives a wee bit of an indication on that. But I take your point about the kind of sample size as well, just to give you that kind of relative perception and understanding of it.
Thank you, Anne. No other questions, so we'll move on, Anne.
Thank you, Chair. The next one is a percentage of businesses saying that reduction in traffic congestion would significantly benefit their business. Now, this one's an interesting one. As you can see, that has increased substantially. It's gone from 28% to 53%. And just to give you a bit of background, this is a survey that the Local Enterprise Partnership carries out biannually. So as you can see there's been a big increase in businesses saying that they feel they would benefit by a reduction in traffic congestion. Again, interesting to feed into what might the effects of the pandemic have been on that outcome, i.e. that big increase. Could it be the fact that a lot more businesses are relying on deliveries, etc., as more and more of us have been home and there's been more online shopping, etc. So it's been even more key to their businesses, and therefore any congestion is an impact, and that's been multiplied. So again, there's a bit of work, I think, to understand some of the drivers behind that and how the pandemic might have impacted on that. But we do note there has been a substantial increase in that one. The next one, overall satisfaction of the condition of pavement and footpaths, similar to the previous ones in terms of this comes out of that, the National Highways and Transport survey there. And as you can see, there's been a bit of an increase from 62% to 64%. We're not quite, it's amber because we're not quite hitting our target at 68% in terms of satisfaction, but we are in the top quartile again. Leicestershire has, just for background information, sorry, for new members, we have traditionally over quite a number of years performed very highly in this survey compared to comparator authorities in terms of the condition of our network and the satisfaction of it. However, as I'm sure you'll have picked up from the very first indicators we talked about, that is a real ongoing challenge given the amount of funding we have. As I say, it affects every other authority as well. The next one, overall satisfaction with traffic levels and congestion, that has gone up from 31% to 40% there, and we are in the top quartile, although not quite meeting the target of 42%. I'll just quickly go to the bottom of the page here if that's all right. Average vehicle speed, weekday morning peak on locally managed A roads. And again, this is about trying to convey, I guess, a level of congestion, because the lower the speeds, the more congestion you're probably seeing and less free flow traffic. So what we're seeing there is that's static, that one, at 31.1 miles per hour. And while it's green and meeting the target, it is in the third quartile when compared to other areas. Last one there, carbon emissions from transport within local authority influence, and this is in kilotons, is we're in the second quartile of that, but please note that the data is 2018. So it actually has gone down from 1900 to 1100, which is obviously a positive move there. So less emissions. However, we'll still need to see how things will go over the next few years. That data comes from central government, and it's data both from BASE in terms of air quality information they have, and traffic count data from the DFT. So again, national one that comes to us and therefore is fairly behind in terms of dates of reporting. I'll pause there, Chair.
Thank you, Anne. Do I have any questions? I'll take Tom, Keith, David.
Thanks, Anne. You mentioned the percentage of businesses saying the reduction in traffic congestion would significantly benefit their businesses. I'm just comparing that with the overall satisfaction with traffic levels and congestion. That's gone up. It really does seem quite an anomaly that in the middle of a pandemic, when there's been less traffic on the road than ever, the businesses are saying it's affecting their business. Well, it is affecting their businesses. Probably people aren't driving and going to their businesses. So you would have thought they would have been happy for more people to be using the roads and coming to their businesses. It just seems completely out of sync. It's really a comment rather than a question. Would you agree with that? It just seems an anomaly.
I would tend to agree, and it's often the case because you're asking people for their view, their own subjective view on it. So one person's view of something today, and equally we've seen it on be it satisfaction with buses or with cycling. Asking individuals, I may give an answer to how satisfied I am with a bus, but I never use a bus. From my limited perception, etc., or vice versa. And I do use a bus at times, I hasten to add. However, so it's a stated preference survey. So as you say, they won't always come together in terms of being giving you a logical picture. What we can look at them and where they are useful is looking at the trend over time. Is it getting better or is it getting worse? And therefore, do we need to take some other action?
Thanks, Anne. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Chair. It's not a question, it's more of a comment for Anne, and it's to do with the satisfaction of the condition of the pavements and footpaths. I do think the Highways Department is damned if you do and damned if you don't, really, and it's all dependent on who fills the survey in and what answers they put in the survey for you to hit your KPI. But and the Chair of the Parish Council in Ellistown and the District Council of Ellistown and Battleflat, and we've seen a massive improvement in the condition of the roads and the footpaths over the last 3 or 4 years. But none of my residents have filled in the survey. So how can we get this survey out more to the public domain, and it might drive your KPIs in the right direction? Thank you.
It is a challenge to us every year. The surveys go directly to the parish councils, they go to members and to the public. Now, I know several times we will go and ask members and do reminders, please fill them in. And we do the same to parishes, but we get a relatively small, percentage return, unfortunately. But it's really good information for us. So, anything if you've got suggestions of what more we can do, or if there's anything more members can do to assist, we'd be hugely grateful on that. But I do tend to agree in terms of the observations. Sometimes, people don't always either record it or even recognise some of the things as you're saying there, improvements to footways, and that's not being fed back to us in any way.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Keith. David.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think this exercise shows that this really only gives us a snapshot and headline figures only, and you can interpret these figures whichever way you want. I looked at that. I looked at this chart which says that businesses saying that traffic congestion, a reduction in traffic congestion, would significantly benefit their businesses, as coming from HGV operators who are now finding more congestion on the roads. And in fact, it's almost double, isn't it, from what we've seen here in a year. So I think what we really need to know is more where these figures have come from, and what exactly, who is exactly complaining, and why. I mean, if I suppose we've got a bit of an obsession in the Hinckley area about the A5, and we've been hit hard by the news that the part of the A5 which was long promised to be improved is no longer going to be improved, and that is already, and we already have severe congestion on that road, which can only increase. So has this survey been taken from the HGV operators along the A5, or has this come from across the whole county? We really could do with we could really do with facts, couldn't we, before we can make any sort of judgment on what we're reading here.
Thank you, David. I'm not sure whether you can answer all that, but answer what you can, please.
Partially answer it. It's a survey conducted by the LEP, the Local Enterprise Partnership. They do it biannually. It is a survey of businesses, of over 1,000 businesses. It lasts on average 25 minutes, so it's a telephone survey of them. They answer 70 questions, 70, and key topics relate to business concerns, exports, general business conditions and business optimism, business growth, performance, recruitment difficulties, skills, training. So as you can see, the kind of traffic congestion question is probably a very small element tucked in among the 70 questions there, and it's over 1,000 businesses. So I don't have the list of those, David, but I imagine there will be a selection across the county of small to big businesses, and geographically, it will be across the county as well.
So, I mean, what do we do with this information then? We're told that almost twice the number of businesses who responded have indicated that congestion is a problem to them. What actually happens to that information that we've received? Are we going to use that as evidence that we need more investment in our network?
This type of information we would use if there was an opportunity to bid, in terms of, something that would be, congestion relieving. So if there was an opportunity to bid for funding, that would help build the case, because it's not just us saying we think this is a good scheme and please, can we have this investment for it? Actually, we've got over 1,000 businesses here who are saying this would substantially, improving traffic conditions and reducing congestions would substantially, help their business. That's the type of thing we would use that for, yes.
Thank you, David. If you turn your microphone off, please, before you impose your visit. Oh, you've got another question.
Yeah, sorry, yes, it's the last one. Carbon emissions from transport within local authority influence, and that's gone down, as Anne had reported, but that is only a small amount of the vehicles on the road. The indications that I've seen from elsewhere is that air quality is deteriorating because of the number of vehicles on the road. And I've seen a report which presumably will no longer come to us because air quality monitoring now goes to a different committee. But it should be of concern to us, because if we're having any say at all in the highway network, we ought to be having cognizance of the fact that air quality is driven mostly by traffic. So air quality has been taken away from us, but we presumably still have some sort of responsibility to monitor the cause of it. Will we actually be receiving air quality reports in future or not?
That is something that is led by the Director of Public Health. However, we will work with them where it is, a transport related issue on that, but it's not something that's led by us, therefore wouldn't be coming to this committee.
Okay.
Thank you, David. Over the page. That's it.
Apologies, just moving on. Yeah, and we're getting there, members, and we're getting near the end. I'm sure you'll be pleased to hear. Next one, we're going on to our road casualties. Now, for information, that we will bring an annual report on road casualties to the committee. In the past, we have done that, and it's always been, a well debated and discussed report. In terms of the performance indicators here, as you'll see, we've got total casualties in Leicestershire's roads, and we're meeting the target, significantly meeting the target there, and they have gone down since the latest reporting quarter. And you will note as well, we are in the top quartile against our comparators. Number of people killed and seriously injured doesn't quite meet its target, but has come down from the previous reporting quarter to 179 from 197, and again in the top quartile. Road safety satisfaction, again, come back to the National Highways and Transport survey. That is showing there as red, is not meeting the target. Latest data is 59% as opposed to that target of 67. However, we are again in the top quartile. Total casualties involving road users, walking, cycling and motor cyclists. So, everything bar cars, etc. So we're looking at those more vulnerable road users. That has gone down just slightly from the previous data as well, at 214 compared to 221. And the final one there, number of people killed or seriously injured across those modes has gone down again, but just marginally to 82. All of those in the top quartile. Now, we have discussed at that annual report before. We do well in terms of road safety when we look at across our comparators there, and that's shown across these indicators. I'll just maybe do the last one as well, Chair, if that's all right. You'll see winter gritting, 100% near performance. For the last season, we achieved that. Every time we were required to go out, we gritted 100% of the road network. We didn't have any issues with that. I'm sure as members know, that is a service that does tend to be very highly valued by our residents, and particularly crucial in the winter there. So it's good to see we managed that 100%. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam. Yes, I was extremely pleased in Whitty with the bad weather last year. We seemed to get excellent service, so thank you in the department for that. Any questions, colleagues? Keith?
Very quick question. Anne, is that them figures there just for 1 month? In March of 2021?
Sorry, I should have explained that. No, it's a rolling 12 months. So it's to that quarter. So we update it quarterly, but your older months will drop off and your more recent ones come in. So apologies, I didn't explain that. It's a rolling 12-month figure. Yes, absolutely. No.
Thank you very much, Anne, for the excellent presentation and, more importantly, your detailed responses. Very grateful. Thank you very much. So nothing else. We'll move on then. But before I move on to item 10, it was remiss of me at the start of the meeting to welcome Anne and also welcome Ozzy and Maggie, very important people, for attending this afternoon. So I'll move on to item 10, dates of future meetings. They're there before us to be noted. Any comments on those? Any problems? So we'll take that as read then. The dates of future meetings are in the diary in ink. Item 11, any other items Chairman has decided to take as urgent? There are none, so I will bring the meeting to a close. Thank everybody for your attendance and contributions and wish you a safe journey home. Thank you very much.